With the warm weather throughout the Upper Plains, how's that affecting small grains in our region? In this week's Agweek cover story, we continue our Agweek cereals crop tour, where I made a stop in Casselton in eastern North Dakota. I'm with Claire Keene, NDSU Extension agronomist, and do you want to go ahead and tell me a little bit about the field we're currently standing in?
Sure. We are in a field of ND Heron spring wheat, the newest ND spring wheat variety to be released.
So we've been having some excessive heat here in the region. How has that helped the growing process along?
A lot of farmers I've spoken with are really surprised that despite the late planting, the crop maturity has really just sped right along. And I chalk that up to some very hot temperatures, late May, early June, and the crop just really getting pushed. And we see that here. This crop looks pretty good. But things are perhaps just a little bit accelerated, so the plant didn't have as much time to do photosynthesis and put on as much vegetative growth as we'd like to see with those hot temps. So I'm thinking that yields will be average. Some folks might get a little bit above or a little below, but overall, pretty good.
So as you've been going out and talking to producers, are there any diseases that they are particularly worried about?
We've seen a lot of bacterial leaf streak. We don't have any good chemical control options for that, but it is one that in places where we've had those high winds, shredding leaves, and then persistent wet weather, seeing some bacterial leaf streak.
So we hopped on over to a winter wheat field, which is significantly less popular in the region. Do you want to go ahead and tell me about that?
Sure. So in North Dakota, we're definitely a spring wheat state. We typically have somewhere in the 5 to 6 million acres a year of spring wheat. But winter wheat, we're usually less than 1 million acres, sometimes substantially less than that.
Has there been any growing interest in winter wheat with producers?
The agronomy seed farm has been getting calls for winter wheat now, which is unusual. Usually it's in a few weeks, if not a month from now, that people are thinking about it. So yes, I do think there is interest out there, primarily in the eastern part of the state from those prevent plant acres.
Thanks, Claire. Claire Keene, NDSU Extension agronomist. Our cereals crop tour also stopped in northwest Minnesota near Crookston, where the spring wheat is looking fairly solid.
There's a lot of good-looking wheat this year.
Agronomist Noel Anderson says that most of the area he covers in northeast North Dakota and northwest Minnesota is looking at average to above average yields despite the cold, wet spring that pushed back planting about 3 weeks.
It was a little surprising. I don't think anybody really knew what to expect with the late planting conditions. A lot of this wheat wasn't planted until the end of May, which isn't unheard of. It's just we weren't really sure what to expect going into this year. So I think it's a pleasant surprise for a lot of people.
Anderson is expecting this field to be harvested in late August, about 3 weeks later than normal.
But what is normal? We don't typically have normal conditions, so August 25th is a little bit later, but it's not absolutely unheard of.
Anderson says they've had pretty good rains through the season. He says the hot weather will help the crops catch up, but the hot, humid weather is also right for Fusarium head blight, so he recommends spraying fungicide, and he says they're seeing a few grasshoppers. He's estimating yields of 60 to 80 bushels an acre. Some growers did have challenges, including heavy rains, hail, and strong windstorms, but Anderson says most fared okay. And he says it's certainly better than last year's drought.
Some things are maybe a little bit farther behind than what we're used to at this time of year, but overall we're looking pretty good.
Last year, the drought cut yields in northwest Minnesota spring wheat to 30 to 50 bushels an acre.
The Agweek Cereals Crop Tour is sponsored by Hefty Seed Company of Wilton and Herdsfield, North Dakota, Corteva Agriscience, and Mosaic.
Thanks for watching Agweek TV on YouTube. Make sure to like and subscribe. We put out new videos every Saturday.